Green card holders, you might want to pause before booking your next international trip, because the US government just rolled out new travel regulations that could completely change how and when you can leave the country. Yes, you heard that right, these aren't minor updates or small clarifications. These are major rule changes that could directly affect your residency status if you travel abroad too often, stay out too long, or fail to meet certain new compliance conditions. For years, permanent residents have enjoyed the freedom to travel outside the US with relatively simple guidelines, but that's now changing. The Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services have tightened the definitions around continuous residence and intent to return. What does that mean for you? It means if you're gone for longer than a certain period, or if your travel pattern looks like you're living somewhere else, you could be flagged for abandonment of residency. And here's the part that's catching everyone by surprise. New reporting and documentation requirements are being discussed, including proof of U.S. employment, tax filings, or even property ties before being allowed re-entry. So if you've got plans to visit family abroad or take a long vacation, these new measures could impact your return to the United States more than you realize. In this video, I'll break down exactly what's changing, who's affected, and what you need to do right now to protect your green card status. But before we dive into all that, if you want to stay informed about U.S. immigration updates that could affect your future, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support helps this community stay ahead of critical immigration news that truly matters to your life. So now that you've seen how serious this is, let's dive deep. Because what I'm about to share matters not just for some people, but for you, if you hold a green card or are planning travel. You need to understand these new U.S. travel rules inside and out, because a misstep could jeopardize your status or your ability to return. Let's start with the big picture. For years, green card holders have had a certain flexibility. You could leave the United States, return, visit family, go on extended trips, as long as you didn't stay away so long that USCIS or Customs and Border Protection questioned your intent to live here permanently. But now, with these new regulations, that flexibility is being dramatically narrowed. These rules are not just tweaks, they're reshaping the assumptions around permanent residency, continuous residence, and allowable travel patterns. First, let's talk about continuous residence. Under the old expectations, if you stayed outside the US for extended periods, you might have to explain your absence, but often it was manageable. Now the government is redefining what extended periods means. They're putting stricter limits on how many days you can be abroad without being presumed to have abandoned your residency. Even more concerning, repeated shorter trips might be scrutinized under a pattern of absence test. Imagine this: you leave the country for a month for vacation, come back, a few months later take another month-long trip under new scrutiny. USCIS might see that as you gradually shifting your life overseas. That's not yet common, but it's increasingly on the table under these changes. Next, proof of intent to return. In the past, having a green card, a U.S. address, or ties like family, work, property helped show that your home is here. Now, authorities may demand more concrete evidence, consistent tax filings in the U.S., documented employment or business operations on U.S. soil, perhaps even proof that you maintain a residence and utilities and communication lines. If you can't show that your center of life remains in America, you risk being challenged. Even worse, if your travel record suggests that your center of life is shifting abroad, you may face proceedings for abandonment of residency. Then there's re-entry documentation. Previously, when you arrived at a U.S. port of entry, as long as your green card was valid and you passed CBP inspection, you were generally allowed in. Under the new regime, you may be required to present additional supporting documents showing your compliance with continuous residence, taxes, employment, or proof of ties. Border officers may question absences more aggressively, request supporting evidence, and issue more travel denials or return without entry orders. That means even with a valid green card, arriving at a U.S. airport or land border won't guarantee you get to step in unless your paperwork checks out. Now, these changes are not hypothetical. Policy drafts surfaced in official discussions and regulatory proposals from DHS and USCIS. They highlight that these revisions are intended to protect the integrity of the permanent residency system by discouraging abuses where green card holders use their status more like a visa, spending most of their time abroad and only returning when convenient. In essence, the government wants to ensure that a green card holder is truly living in the U.S., not just holding the card as a backup plan. That shift has significant consequences if you've been treating your green card like a global travel pass. Here's why this matters now. If you travel after these rules take effect without understanding them, you could inadvertently trigger scrutiny or penalties. Maybe your return to the US is delayed, or worse, denied. Perhaps you are flagged for abandonment and forced to prove your continuous residence in court or USCIS interviews. Your legal battles could drag on, cost money, or even end with losing your status. Those aren't distant risks, these are real risks for many people who frequently cross borders, travel for work, or maintain homes abroad. I want to make this concrete with scenarios you might already relate to. Let's say you're a green card holder who splits time between the US and your home country. You spend 6 months in the US, then 4 months abroad, then back again. Under the new rules, that pattern, though it served you well before, might raise red flags. USCIS could ask, why are you consistently spending nearly as much time outside the US? Are you shifting your primary life abroad? You might be asked to prove you have full-time employment in the US, prove you maintain a residence, and show tax returns that indicate US as your primary base. If any of those documents are weak or missing, you may face consequences. Another scenario. Suppose you're traveling abroad for a long period, maybe 8 or 9 months, for family or work. Under the old regime, you might have applied for a reentry permit. But those permits usually have time limits. Under the new rules, even reentry permits might not shield you if the overall travel pattern looks like you're abandoning your US residence. Authorities could still challenge your claim, demand more documentation, or deny reentry if they believe your intent shifted. Let me warn you, the transition period here is going to be chaotic. When the rule changes officially take effect, there'll be confusion at ports of entry, inconsistent applications across border officers, and a flood of cases. Some individuals will be caught unprepared. Some may be denied entry for days. Some may be forced into hearings. It's critical you understand each element, because once you cross that border into the US, your return could be contingent on scrutiny you didn't plan for. So, what do you need to do right now to protect yourself? I'll walk you through mental steps, not bullet lists, but a conversation you can internalize. First, assess your travel habits. If you've been leaving for long stretches or frequent trips overseas, ask, could this raise questions under the new rules? Chances are yes. So begin compiling your evidence: US tax returns, proof of employment, payslips, contracts, business registration, property leases or deeds in the US. Utility bills, bank statements tied to your US account, correspondence addressed to your US residence, all those lifestyle ties that affirm your life is anchored here. Don't wait until you're returning through a border checkpoint to scramble for documents. Build your file now. Also, consider limiting your absences. Where possible, reduce the length and frequency of your trips abroad until the new rules are clarified. If you can maintain presence in the US for more sustained stretches, it strengthens your position. If overseas stays are necessary, plan them carefully, consider splitting them or returning more frequently so that your absence doesn't look like abandonment. If your situation is more complex, you own a home abroad, a job overseas, or a dependent life abroad, it's even more important to speak to an immigration attorney familiar with green card abandonment risk. They can help you craft a robust case, documenting the exact dates of travel, maintaining US contracts or employment, structuring your life so the center of your life stays in the US, and preparing you for interviews or detention if challenged. Now, you might wonder, how will these rules actually be enforced at the border? When they roll out, border agents may have updated checklists and training to flag suspicious travel patterns. You'll likely face more questions, not the usual purpose of visit but deeper ones. Where have you been? How much time abroad? What's your work in the US? What proof can you show? If you stumble or can't provide documents, you may be placed in secondary inspection, delayed, or even denied entry. Even more, for those who apply for naturalization later, USCIS might use your travel record and how well you manage these stricter rules as part of assessing continuous residence or physical presence requirements. If your pattern looks like you were spending most of your energy abroad, that could count against you in naturalization eligibility. This is not fearmongering, it's a wake-up call. The US government is signaling that it will no longer tolerate green card holders treating the card as a global ticket without real connection to the country. These new rules are intentionally pushing for stricter accountability. If you ignore them, the consequences could be severe loss of permanent residency, denial of reentry, or rejection of naturalization. One silver lining: transitional provisions. It's possible that when the new rule is adopted, there will be grace periods or grandfathering for people already in certain situations. But don't assume you'll be spared. Even in transition periods, authorities may increasingly scrutinize borderline cases. If your travel or documentation is weak, you won't have the benefit of hindsight. That's why preparing now with your evidence documented is your best defense. I want you to imagine arriving at a U.S. border checkpoint after these rules go into effect. You step off the plane or cross a land border. An officer asks for your green card, fine. But then comes the follow-up: I see you were abroad 8 months last year. Can you show me proof you maintained employment or property here? Can you show me tax filings? Where is your U.S. residence? If you stumble or don't have the documents ready, you could face being held in secondary inspection, asked to wait, or worst case, refused entry. That's not a distant scenario for many. It will become one of the first real tests of these new policies. So the bottom line is, take this seriously. The time to act is before these restrictions fully take effect. Start building documentation now. Limit your international absences. Keep clear, consistent proof that your life remains here. If you need legal help, find an attorney now. Don't wait until you're stuck at a border with your green card in hand, hoping that the officer lets you in. To wrap this up, we are witnessing a turning point in how the U.S. government treats green card travel. No longer will having the card be automatic permission to roam freely. The new rules are casting a spotlight on every trip you take, every absence you have, and every tie you maintain. This is about shifting your status from holder of a green card to resident with obligations living in the U.S. in more than name only. If you adapt, prepare, and strengthen your ties now, you can navigate this change with confidence. But if you ignore it, you may find yourself facing consequences you never saw coming. And before we jump into the next section, where I'll answer your FAQs, give case examples, and guide you step by step through preparing your documents, I want to ask you, if you found this information helpful, and you want to protect your future U.S. residency rights, do me a favor, hit that like button right now. It boosts this video in search, helps bring this critical info to others who need it, and shows me you're serious about staying informed. Alright, let's continue. So remember, these new U.S. travel rules aren't just headlines, they're real, and they're already changing how green card holders move across borders. Don't wait for a surprise at the airport to realize the rules have changed. Protect your status, prepare your documents, and stay alert. You worked too hard to earn that green card, don't risk it because of a technicality or missed update. Knowledge is your best defense, and that's exactly what we're building together here. If this video helped you understand what's really going on, hit that like button right now. It helps more green card holders see this before it's too late. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss an important immigration update. Stay informed, stay prepared, and I'll see you in the next video.